Hello class, and welcome to lesson 3. I'm going to briefly go over several of the things in this week's lesson. I'm going to go over your speaking partner registration because I know a lot of you have questions about that. I will briefly go over the paragraph and essay development as well as the discussion board topics, and then I will really focus on helping you revise your love letters. And I would say that's the most important part of this week's lesson. So if you need to skip to that part, feel free to, but make sure to view that, okay? So if we look at lesson 3, here's the introduction folder, which as usual has the questions and conversations, the main page, and then here's the speaking partner alternate assignment. So here's the deal. You should have been assigned a speaking partner by now. It's Monday. You should have received an email from Pathway telling you who your speaking partner was, or if you don't see an email, you can go back to the URL where you registered as a speaking partner, and you can find that back in lesson 1, and you can check that website to see if you have been assigned a speaking partner. If you have not received an email and you do not see any speaking partners when you go back to the registration page, it means that you get to do the alternate assignment, okay? So the alternate assignment, you just need to click on this link and it will bring you to this PDF that you can download, and this tells you how to do the alternate assignment. You will basically be researching about another country or culture for 30 minutes each week. Make sure that you are taking notes on what you are learning because you will be reporting on it at the end of the semester, just like those with speaking partners will be reporting on their experiences with their speaking partners. So you'll be doing the same amount of time, the same amount of work. It will just be research on your own instead of corresponding with a speaking partner. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask me or Pathway itself because they're the ones in charge of the speaking partners, and we should be able to help you. So there's the speaking partner alternate assignment. Now let's move on to the midweek folder. We have a grammar lesson on run-ons, which should be pretty straightforward. And then I want you to pay attention to the paragraph and essay development videos this week. Let me take you over there. If you click there, you will come up on this page that brings you some videos to watch. I can't emphasize enough how important it is that you watch these videos. They are what will help you write good papers and be a good fellow student for those that you're gathering. This one will help you give good peer feedback, and again, make sure not to skip it. The one I want to talk about right now is description and detail. This video is very important because our love letter is all about description and detail. So make sure you watch it carefully and that you pay attention to what it's teaching you. And if you don't understand some of the concepts, feel free to post on the question board and we can talk about it. But this information about description and detail is what will help you respond well on the discussion boards and revise your love letter. So make sure you're paying attention. Speaking of which, I now want to talk a little bit about the discussion boards. This week, we will be diving into more analysis with our discussion boards, and this is why I want you to take the discussion board seriously. In this class, we use discussion boards to learn how to analyze a piece of writing, and that is an essential part of the English subject. So the discussion board is an active part of our curriculum this semester, and if you use it well, you will learn very good analysis. So in order to participate well in the weekly discussion boards, I want to just walk you through a couple of the prompts. As you read through these prompts, you will see that each of them asks you to provide evidence for what you are talking about, for what you want to post about. For example, in this first one, it says choose one of the 5 senses and see if you can find an example of an appeal to that sense in each of the 3 essays. For example, if you choose hearing, find an example, a sentence or passage, something you can quote in each essay where sound is an important part of the detail. In the discussion board, report on your findings, discussing specific examples. So notice in this, it mentions specific examples several times, and that is because that's an essential part of analyzing a reading, of finding the meaning the author is trying to present there. So to help you analyze well, make sure you are following your prompt carefully, read through each of the questions in it, and make sure you're answering it. And each of these prompts asks for similar evidences, so each of them will have you do analysis. And then I would encourage you to follow the analysis rules that I will put up on the announcements. Okay, the first is to quote specific words from the text, and the second is to explain the effect the author created or wanted to create with those words. So that means when you post on the discussion board, if you were responding to this first prompt, you might say something like, I noticed that the author of the turtle passage used words like crunch and skitter, and these really helped me to hear something. Okay, so I used the word crunch and skitter. I would put those in quotes. I would quote those specifically from the text, and then I would explain that these would help me to hear the turtle better than different words that the author could have used. So make sure that every time you post in our discussion board from now on, that you quote specific words from the text and then you explain what the author was trying to do with those words. If you want further explanation on that, feel free to email me and we can talk about it, and I will continue to give you examples of this throughout the semester. But again, this is critical to analysis, so please pay attention to it, and we should be able to get some neat stuff done in our discussion boards by following those rules. So there's what I wanted to mention on the discussion boards. Now, I want to talk about the love letter. So this week, you will have a second rough draft due Wednesday night at 11 p.m. Mountain Time. Okay? So this is another rough draft, and I want you to really make sincere revisions on your love letter for this second rough draft. And the reason for that is I want you to make it the best you possibly can before you bring it to the gathering. And then your classmates there can help you revise it a little bit further. And then Saturday night at 11 p.m. Mountain Time, you will turn in your final draft of the writing assignment. Okay, so now I'm going to go through how to revise your love letter on your own for this rough draft, and then I will go over how to format that love letter, which it will need to be properly formatted in order to get full points for the final draft. Okay, so let's go over to revision. So here is my love letter that I just wrote up. It was fun. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would revise it. So the first thing I would do is I would read it out loud to myself. And when you read it out loud, it's easier to hear where your grammar might be wrong, to pick up misspelled words, and to hear if things just sound more boring than they did in your head. So let's read through this first paragraph. My dearest Amazon, I swear it isn't the UPS man. It's you. It's actually you I adore. Yes, it's true. He is the one who brings you to my door. But it's the moment he drops your box into my hands that the thrill zings through me. I promise I don't even notice him. Okay, as I read through this first paragraph, what comes to mind is something from the description and detail video. The very first quote in that video says, "Don't tell me that something was amazing or thrilling. You need to show me. You think I'm just going to take your word for it?" So here, I'm asking Amazon to take my word for it. I'm not really showing Amazon how I feel. So I'm going to look for more ways to show instead of tell. And I would say the first place would be in this sentence. And how I try to show instead of tell is to make it so I can see it happening. I like to think of it as a little movie in my head, and I try to make it a movie. So yes, it's true, he is the one who brings you to my door. I could make that a lot more visual. I could say, yes, it's true, a brown-clad, or yes, a man in a brown uniform carries you jauntily to my doorstep, carrying you casually under one arm. Okay, so I might want to go back and tweak that a little bit. I noticed I used the word carry twice, and that always bothers me when I use the same word in the same paragraph. But I do think that's a lot more visual, right? I can now see a man in a brown uniform. He's being jaunty. There's something more visual. And he's carrying this box casually under one arm, right? Okay, I think that's more visual, but it's the moment he drops your box into my hands that the thrill zings through me. Okay, that sounds pretty descriptive, but let's try and make box more interesting. This can be fun too. You can just go through and look at the important nouns in your paper, the important objects, and try to describe them just a little bit more in important ways. So let's say it's the moment he drops your mysteriously blank box into my hands. Well, that builds a little suspense. That's interesting. I'll have to talk more about why it's blank, maybe. That the thrill zings through me. I promise I don't even notice him. Okay, this sentence, in my opinion, is where I am telling instead of showing the most. I want to show that I don't even notice this UPS man. So maybe I can continue, I can describe the zing a little more and go from there. Let's say my hairs stand on end, my grin invades both cheeks, and I don't even look at the UPS man as I hastily sign the form and slam the door shut. Okay, that's got some visuals in it, and some tactile sensation too. My hairs are standing on end. We all know what that feels like. You can see a grin. I'm not looking at him. I hastily sign the form. That's visible too. And slam, there's something to hear as well. There's another sense I'm involving. So that's how I would go through my paper, reading out loud and looking for anywhere that I can add in more to see, and not just anything to see, but events that I can show that will add to the meaning of the paper. Okay. So there's an example of that. My other suggestion would be to add in a story wherever possible, or a specific example, a specific experience. So I actually, if I were to keep revising this, I might even disregard my following paragraphs. And this is something important in revision. Revision means to see something anew, right? Vision, to see, and again, to re-see something. So when I revise, I try to let myself be very, to change a lot of things, to feel free to throw out sentences, to throw out paragraphs, and to write them completely new, to rearrange paragraphs maybe, but I don't usually just change a word here and there. I try to really mix things up, and that helps my creativity to flow easier. So to revise this, I actually don't really like this next paragraph as I was reading it. So I'm going to pretend it's not there, and I'm going to carry on in my story that I felt like I was starting to tell. Let's say, now I'm finally alone with you. I cradle you close and steal glances at your label. I can see your beautiful name printed across it, Amazon. And from there I could go on. I could describe how I slowly open the box and let the cardboard fall away and then peel off the bubble wrap and behold a beautiful gift from my Amazon, right? I could really go into this experience and what was it that I got and how did it make me feel, and there's all sorts of potential there to both lengthen your essay if you feel that it's too short, because remember it needs to be at least a page, so I'd suggest it spills off of the page. So that's a way to lengthen things. That's a way to make it much more interesting and to captivate your audience. So again, those two suggestions were, one, to help your audience visualize what you are seeing. And second, to add in specific experiences. So there's my suggestions for revising for your rough draft. Now, the second part of this is to make sure that your essay is correctly formatted. Now, if we go back to the instructions for the love letter and look at the rubric, you'll notice that, okay, 40 points of it is on expanding on significant qualities of your beloved object, and that's what we just talked about. It needs to be well organized. You need to talk to the object directly, like I was just demonstrating. But then notice 20 points of it are dedicated to length, formatting, and grammar. Okay, so you will be docked points if it's not formatted correctly. I might also add you will be docked points if you have any fragments or run-ons, since we've gone over both of those grammar concepts by the time you turn in your final draft. And you will be docked if you have any uncapitalized letters at the beginning of sentences, if you're missing periods. So make sure you proofread it well. So now let's go over formatting so that you can make sure you get all of your points on that, okay? In this class, we will need to use MLA formatting, and I've started demonstrating it here actually. Let me get rid of my notes here. So with MLA formatting, you need to have your name here at the top, then my name as your teacher, Sister Baumgarten, then English 106, then the date, and then you start right into your paper. Notice that I don't have an extra space here. It's just the very next line. If you want, you could put the title of your essay here, and if you do that, you can center it. But again, notice there's no extra spaces between the title and the beginning of my essay. So that's basic MLA format. You also will need to highlight your whole paper. You can do that by doing Control-A on a Windows machine or Command-A on a Mac machine. And then coming here to your fonts and choosing Times New Roman and making sure it is size 12. The default of most word processors is not Times New Roman, so you will have to manually change it to Times New Roman. Finally, you will come here to this icon here if you're in Word, Microsoft Word. You will select 2 for double spacing. And with a lot of these, when you start writing, you might notice that you have an extra space after your paragraphs, that it might look like this. Notice how this is much more spaced out between the paragraphs. This is not good MLA format. Don't do that. And I promise all of your word processors will do that automatically from the beginning. So make sure you highlight it all. Come here, go to your line spacing options, and tell it to have 0 points after and before. These should both say 0. Then click OK, and it should look normal. So there's an example of MLA format. And this is how it should look. If you have any questions on this, please let me know, because like I said, this is worth points. All right, that's all for today. I look forward to seeing your love letters.